All right, guys, this session we are going to be looking at shift work and jet lag. So starting with shift work. Basically, it is a type of work schedule designed to meet the 24/7, 20-hour, 7 days a week societal demands that we have. So things like construction workers, doctors, nurses, police officers, firemen, got that word for a second. Australia typically run on 3 different shifts. The day shift, which is about mid-morning to mid-afternoon, afternoon shift from mid-afternoon to late night, and then night shift, which is late night until early morning. And approximately 1.5 million Australians are shift workers, so 16% of our workforce are shift workers. And there are 2 types of shift work. There's fixed schedule shift work, where people work the same shift on a regular ongoing basis. So they always do day shift, they always do night shift, or they always do afternoon shifts. And the other type is rotating schedule. And this is where people change shifts every so often to work a mix of day, afternoon, and night shifts. So let's look at night shift in particular and the disturbances of doing night shift. It is the most disruptive to the sleep-wake cycle. People who do a permanent night shift do tend to experience problems with sleep quality and quantity, so the amount they sleep as well as how well they sleep. They do lose between about 1 and 4 hours of sleep a day compared to a non-shift worker, and the quality is not as well because it's often broken into 2 episodes, so a longer one in the morning and then a shorter sort of nap for an hour or 2 in the evening. Sleeping during the day is more difficult. You've got way more disruptions. So phone's more likely to ring, people are more likely to be at the doorbell, there's people outside more likely to make noises that wake you up. Rules around noise making in general is very different compared to at night time, and there's more light present. So my husband does shift work and often does a week of night shift in a row. And I know when he tries to sleep, he has great difficulty. We have to put block-out blinds in so he can reduce the amount of light getting to him. But even then, just us being in the house means that we're making noises that disrupt his sleep. The doorbell often rings, his phone often rings, and he just doesn't get a full sleep episode. And because of all of this, it causes excessive sleepiness during the waking hours. It reduces your alertness and can impair your performance. Now, when we look at the type of people who do night shift, who are often responsible for others, this can become quite dangerous, especially when we already know that one night's sleep deprivation is the same as being under the influence of alcohol. And unfortunately, most people never fully adapt to night shift because they're constantly reverting back to a normal day-night schedule. So they get a weekend, go back to being awake during the day, and then have to shift that sleep cycle back. So rotating shift sleep disturbances. So as I mentioned, my husband's a police officer, and unfortunately he has a rotating shift. What does that mean? It means that they're doing a mix of things. They could be doing a morning, an evening, a nighttime, and it's all over the place. Most rotating shifts do run on a schedule, so they do 3 weeks of a particular shift or 1 week of a particular shift. Doesn't tend to change every day. However, some of these emergency services mean that they need somebody to fill it in, and as a result, they end up doing it all over the place. And this can cause quite a lot of sleep disturbance. And workers with rotating shifts report higher frequencies of sleep disturbances than those with fixed schedules. And those quick shift type changes that we just talked about, where you're going from one type of shift to another, so from morning to night to then evening and then morning again, are the most difficult because they don't get the time to adjust and align with their environmental and external cues, like those people who get to do it for a full week or ideally 3 full weeks. The longer a person works a shift type before rotating, the better a person adjusts. So as I said, they do it for 3 weeks, they deal a lot better than perhaps 3 days of an afternoon shift, for example. And we also adapt better to successively later shifts than successively earlier shifts. So if you were to do a day shift for a week or two, then you did the afternoon shift and then the night shift, you will adapt better than if you were to do the night shift for a week, then the afternoon shift, and then the day shift. And that's because your sleep cycle is naturally closer to 25 hours. So if we're extending our day just a little bit each time, it works better with our natural biological clocks. There is something, however, called shift work sleep disorder. And this can be diagnosed for those who complain of excessive sleepiness at work and impaired sleep at home on a persistent basis. And there's 2 primary symptoms for this: insomnia, when a person is trying to sleep, so not being able to fall asleep, and excessive sleepiness when they need to be awake and alert. It is more common and severe in those who work night shift and those doing double shifts and quick shift changes than other types of shift work. Jet lag. Jet lag can sometimes be called time zone change syndrome, and it's a sleep disorder due to disturbance to the circadian sleep-wake cycle, and it's caused by a rapid travel across multiple time zones. And what's happening is we're getting a mismatch between our internal circadian biological clock and the external environment. So the time that we normally go to sleep and wake up is different to the cues that we're given because we've gone overseas somewhere. And all of a sudden, what's 8 o'clock here is 3 a.m. in the morning over there. It's a temporary disorder, and it just requires our brain and body to adjust to the new environmental conditions. So what happens when we get jet lag? You can have difficulty initiating or maintaining sleep. You can have excessive sleepiness, reduced daytime alertness, impaired concentration, impaired cognitive performance, and digestive problems, because our digestion is actually timed with the biological clock and reduces when we're asleep. And then there's this thing called malaise. So this is this not right feeling. I just don't feel right. I feel unwell. And that's due to a loss of harmony with our biological rhythms. In terms of really technical sleep stuff, there is a greater number of arousals during a sleep episode when you're suffering from jet lag, and you get a greater number of NREM stage 1 sleep. So more stage 1 sleep in those first 2 to 3 sleep episodes, so those first 2 to 3 nights. And how badly you suffer from jet lag depends on a few things. It's the number of time zones you've crossed in a journey, so basically how far away you've travelled, the direction you've travelled, so east or west, the timing of the takeoff and arrival, so often doing things like the red eye is a really good idea. The red eye is when you leave late at night and arrive early in the morning, so you're travelling during the night and you sleep during that, and that can often be really helpful. The sleep timing, duration and quality on the flight, so whether or not you get enough sleep, when you sleep, how well you sleep, and then just personal characteristics of an individual. So being older means you're not going to sleep as well or as often, and being younger means that you're going to need more sleep. So if you don't get all of that sleep, you're going to be more exhausted. Sleep-wake cycle disturbance generally will subside after 2 to 3 days. So about 2 or 3 days after you arrive at your destination, you should be in a normal sleep-wake cycle pattern for that new destination. But other biological functions can take up to 8 days, so things like your digestion. Traveling west is best. So we actually deal with jet lag a lot better if we travel west, this way, than if we travel east. And the reason I think that is because you're following the pathway of the sun when you travel west, and that's going to cause less mismatch between our biological clock and the day-night cycle of our external environment. And there's actually 2 types of interruptions to circadian rhythms that are associated with this. There's phase advance, which is shortening our sleep-wake cycle, And this happens when we travel easterly. So when we go east, you're actually jumping time zones and making the day essentially shorter. So if it takes me 2 minutes to travel from this time to this time, well, where it's 10 o'clock here, it's 11 o'clock here. So I just basically lost an hour of my day. Now, considering our sleep-wake cycle biologically tends to go more towards 25 hours, this phase advance, which shortens our sleep-wake cycle, makes much bigger impact. Whereas phase delay, which is lengthening our sleep-wake cycle, going to the west, where our day is extended. So for example, it might be 11 o'clock here and I go to 10 o'clock there, so I get an extra hour in my day, is more aligned with what our body is used to biologically, because we do tend to biologically have closer to a 25-hour sleep-wake cycle rather than the day-night 24-hour cycle. What can we do to overcome jet lag? Well, jet lag isn't the actual things that we get when we're traveling and on the plane. So it's not headaches from being in a small cabin. It's not a cold or nausea from being on the plane. It's really just to do with our biological clock. So the best way to overcome jet lag is to reset our biological clock to the destination time as quickly as we can. And we can do that by changing our eating, sleeping, and behavior patterns before we arrive to the new destination time, manufacturing our environmental cues on the plane to be in harmony with the destination time. So turning on lights at particular times, then turning off lights and wearing sunglasses or eye masks. You'll see most planes do this on commercial flights. They'll have day and night times and they don't match a particular rhythm of a particular destination. They're trying to manufacture that environmental cue to reduce your jet lag. You can try and sleep in sync with the destination time on the plane. So again, trying to make it so that your sleep patterns are going to fit in better with when you arrive. And once you get there, spending lots of time outside. So letting those environmental cues have that impact. All right, have a go at your last learning activities.